We must constantly start from our beginning, from the earliest thoughts of our childhood, clarifying them and refining them and extracting with purity and courage the goodness and the light that is within them. We must not belittle simple thoughts. Actually, these very thoughts stand ready to illuminate our paths, more than all those thoughts that we imagine to be lofty and exalted. Before we come to the page, before the first word is ever written down or read or listened to, there is a longing to connect. My name is Charlie Mehrhoff, your host here at Before the Page, a podcast featuring poetry, parable, fiction, and words to echo our longing. Welcome, friends and listeners, to this episode of Before the Page. This episode goes out to the child in all of us, because there is a child in all of us. This piece was composed over 20 years ago by the reader. 3-year-old Isabel Sophia, sitting on my lap, begs me to stop reading so that she can inquire about Peter Pan. Daddy, where has all the magic gone? In 1963, when Kenya gained her independence from the British Empire, there were 8 million human souls living there. Today, in 2025, the population of Kenya is approaching 57 million people, with little over 10% of its land being arable. And there are over 40 tribes in Kenya. There's a lot of tension. There's a saying in Kenya, when you're a group, when your tribe comes into power, they say, it's our turn to eat. You are about to hear a manuscript written for a children's book composed by the reader and his wife, Nora. It's entitled Mama at the Mango Tree. It's for the orphans. It's their turn to eat. In Kenya, when a child goes to school, their family must pay for a uniform, books, and food. Delphine's father was a poor cobbler. There was no money for school fees. Delphine knew education would make life better, so she decided to make money. She borrowed flour and oil and pans from neighbors. Her family helped her bake and sell bread. The earnings paid her school fees. She also planted a garden and sold vegetables to help other students. But the needs of her family came first. After grade 8, Delphine left school to work at the post office. She was soon married. It was the way of her tribe. In a few short years, Delphine had 3 beautiful daughters. Sadly, her husband wanted only boys, not girls. He left Delphine and the children on their own. Delphine did extra work to pay her children's school fees. She made soap and sold soap. She grew vegetables and sold vegetables. She even made bricks and sold bricks. Eventually, Delphine was able to finish her own schooling. She became a teacher. One night, Delphine heard God's voice in a dream. It said, "Work for me." Delphine prayed. The work was to teach and to care for children in need. She found land. On the land stood the most magnificent mango tree. A mango is a sweet fruit, ripe to eat when it turns bright yellow or orange, like sunshine. Right there at the mango tree, Delphine began the work. A house was built, a garden planted. Kind-hearted people spread the word about Delphine. Children arrived. They were orphans and the children of widows. And there, in the heart of Africa, beneath the sweet shade of the mango tree, Mama Delphine began to teach the children. She taught them how to read and write. The children learned math. 1 + 1 + 1 equals all of Kenya. They learned how to grow crops. They learned to care for themselves and for others. They helped with housework. Mama Delphine gave lessons in how to wave goodbye to bad feelings and anger. The children played and laughed, and the mango tree gave its fruit to the orphans, and the garden fed them. Most days it was enough, yet there were days when everyone shared their hunger. People gave gifts to help: clothing, books, food, money. A schoolhouse was built. More teachers came and lived and learned and loved. Hundreds of Mama's grown-up students now work throughout all of Kenya. And today, if you visit the mango tree, you just might see a beautiful old woman teaching children beneath its shade. Mama at the Mango Tree has been published privately. For those who wish to obtain a copy, we'll give you information at the end of this podcast. The mango tree is not indigenous to Africa. Many believe that it was introduced from India. We do know that Jataka tales, past life stories of the Buddha, do originate in India, central India, north central India, on the Ganges. And they date between 300 BC and 400 AD. This is a stunning retelling of a Jataka tale by Rafe Martin. It's entitled Brave Little Parrot. Long ago, a little gray parrot lived in a green forest. She was a happy bird and loved to fly. One day a dark storm hovered over the forest. Lightning flashed and the forest began to burn. The parrot, smelling smoke, flapped her wings and rose up. After all, she was a bird and could fly away. As she flew, she cried out, "Fire! Fire! Run! Run to the river!" Her hope was that others might escape too. But as she flew over the now vastly burning forest, she saw that many animals were already trapped by the flames. She saw, too, that the great trees among whose branches she had often taken shelter, trees she loved, were wreathed with flame. How can a tree escape fire, she thought. Then a desperate thought came to her. She saw the one thing she could do that might save her burning world. She flew to the river, but didn't fly across it to safety. Instead, she called to the animals huddled miserably there. "Let us carry water to the fire with paw and beak and mouth and leaf cup. Let us douse the flames and save our forest." But the animals answered hopelessly, "It's too late. We must stay here where it's safe. There is nothing anyone can do now." But the little parrot said, "I will do what I can." She flew to the river and dipped her body and wings into the cool water. Then she flew back over the raging fire. The flames were intense. The fire leaped high. The heat was terrible, twisting and turning through that mad maze of fire. On she flew. When she was above the heart of the blaze, she shook her body and wings, and the few drops of water that still clung to her feathers tumbled like jewels down into the flames, and they evaporated and were gone. Then the little parrot flew back to the river and did it again and again and again. Her feathers became charred, her claws cracked, her eyes danced red as coals, but still the little parrot, flew bravely on. Some of the gods were drifting by high overhead in their cloud palaces. One of them, happening to look down, saw the fire and the brave little parrot. "Look!" he exclaimed. Now the other gods and goddesses looked, and they laughed. "Look at that ridiculous little bird trying to put out a raging forest fire with a few drops of water. Can you imagine? How absurd!" But the first god was moved. Transforming himself into a golden eagle, he flew down to where the little parrot was making her way with a few drops of water through the flames. The heat was intense. The great eagle could hardly stand it. In a commanding voice he called out, "Stop, little parrot. Turn back now before it's too late. Turn back and save yourself, lest you fall into the flames." But the little parrot only panted, "I don't need such advice. All I need is help." And on she flew. The eagle, who was a god, beat his great wings and rose higher, away from the searing heat and choking smoke and fire. Looking down, he saw the brave little parrot flying bravely on. Looking up, he saw his fellow gods and goddesses laughing and talking, eating and drinking, while so many animals and trees suffered in the flames below. "We are gods after all," he exclaimed. "We should do something." Then, deeply moved, tears fell from his eyes, fell like rain upon the fire, the forest, the plants, and the animals, and upon the brave little parrot. And because those were the tears of a god, wherever they touched the flames were doused. Instantly green grass began to grow. New buds and leaves appeared. Any animals injured by the fire were made whole and well. And the brave little parrot, washed by those tears, saw new feathers grow. Feathers red as sunset, blue as the river, yellow as sunlight, orange as flame, green as the forest. She had become a beautiful bird. "Hooray!" cried the animals. "Hooray for the brave little parrot and this miraculous rain!" Looping and soaring in delight, the little parrot flew over the green forest. She had done all she could, and somehow it had saved them. Again, you just heard Rafe Martin's exquisite retelling of a traditional Buddhist Jataka tale. This next piece is entitled Beginnings, composed by Rav Kook about a century ago, brought into English from the Hebrew by Rachel Tova Ebner. It's entitled Beginnings. We must constantly start from our beginning, from the earliest thoughts of our childhood, clarifying them and refining them and extracting with purity and courage the goodness and the light that is within them. We must not belittle simple thoughts. Actually, these very thoughts stand ready to illuminate our paths, more than all those thoughts that we imagine to be lofty and exalted. This piece is composed by the reader. It goes out to Mimi. The wonder is not that some of the pyramids and castles remain standing. The wonder is that love has survived. Earth, where love has never left the building. I'm going to finish up this episode of Before the Page with the reading of another manuscript for a children's book. This is entitled Beyond the Big. It was composed by Nora and Charlie Mehrhoff, the reader. It's for the Palomine family. A long, long time ago, there lived a giant named Goliath. Goliath was a bully. He was mean. Goliath would take from everyone, especially when he was hungry. And giants are almost always hungry. Once there was a whole army frozen in fear of this giant bully. Goliath, with a mob of thugs behind him, would come and make fun of the fear-frozen army. "One of you fight me. If he defeats me, we will serve you." Goliath's voice boomed throughout the valley. "But when I beat him, you will become our slaves." He and his thugs laughed. Day after day, Goliath dared the army, but not one of its soldiers would fight him. Then a young shepherd named David happened to hear the giant. David was different. He had no fear of a large beast like Goliath. David grew up taking care of his father's sheep. Many times he had to fight off hungry bears or prowling lions that came to steal the sheep. David knew he could beat Goliath. The king offered David his own armor and his sword. David refused. The armor and the sword were too heavy for him. He took only his sling and a few stones from a nearby stream. Then David went down to the valley and dropped the loud-mouthed giant with a single stone. When Goliath fell, it was as if a spell had been broken. Each warrior found something within, something that had been hiding. Courage. All together they stormed into the valley and chased Goliath's mob far and away. Not every creature called Goliath is a bully, and not all courage is found when fighting. Today, there is a big, beautiful Belgian horse named Goliath. For many years, Goliath the horse pulled heavy loads across rough lands. Then came the day when Goliath could no longer pull all his owner demanded, and he was sold. That is how he came to the herd at Palomine, a place where people come to learn from horses. The workers at Palomine believed that their new friend would help others find courage. Did you know that some people are afraid of big animals? Some are afraid of big bridges or big jobs. But ever since Goliath has been at Palomine, lots of people have learned to go beyond the big. They learned that big can be friendly and safe and fun, even gentle. Some people walk with Goliath or simply stand next to him. Others tell him secrets. Horses are the very best keepers of secrets. Lots of people go riding with Goliath. Now, as in those days of old, many people find their courage because of a giant named Goliath. Thank you so much for listening to this, another episode of Before the Page. If you would like to find out more about Goliath, about the herd at Palomine, about the wonderful work that's being done at Palomine Equestrian, please contact them or look them up on the World Wide Web at palomine.org. That's PAL-O-MINE, palomine.org. To discover more about Mama Delphine and the wonderful work that she and her staff have been doing outside of Kisumu, Kenya, much can be found at rippleeffectproject.org. That's rippleeffectproject.org. rippleeffectproject.org. And finally, to learn more about the wonderful work of Rafe Martin, all his many books and translations, please go to rafemartin.com. That's RAFEMARTIN.com. And big shout out of thanks to Rafe and Rose for permission to read the Jataka Tale retelling, the exquisite Jataka Tale retelling. Until next time, thank you all for joining us here at Before the Page.